Before the first tales were told, before the songs of heroes echoed through the land, there was silence. A silence guarded by one, Niam, the sky god. Within his grasp lay every story of the world, locked away in the heavens, out of reach for mortals and gods alike. He ruled over them, unmoving, unyielding. But in the shadows, there lurked another. A god not of strength, but of cunning. Anansi. With threads of deception and webs of wit, he dared to reach for the untouchable. No trick was too bold, no plan too daring. This is the story of a god who dared to challenge the skies for the gift of stories. Anansi, the spider god, was unlike the others who roamed the vast lands of the gods. Where they possessed brute strength or fearsome power, Anansi carried with him something far more dangerous, his mind. In the land of the Akan people, he was celebrated and feared in equal measure. A master of riddles, a weaver of tales, a god whose silver tongue could undo the mightiest plans. But despite his cleverness, there was an emptiness that gnawed at him. For Anansi, life was about one thing, stories. Through them, he shaped the world, molded ideas, and bound mortals and gods alike to his will. But there was one truth that haunted him. He could weave as many tales as he wished, but the greatest stories, the first stories, were locked away in the heavens. Niam, the sky god, held them in his possession, keeping them hidden from the world. With those stories, Anansi knew he could gain the power and recognition he so deeply craved. They weren't just stories, they were wisdom, knowledge, the very essence of creation. How could he, a small god, often underestimated by others, reach for the unreachable? He would need more than cunning, he would need a plan so bold, so intricate, that even the great Niam himself wouldn't see it coming. And for Anansi, there was no greater challenge. Anansi wasn't like the gods who thundered across the heavens or ruled over mighty domains. He didn't wield the power to crush mountains or command storms. Instead, he relied on the most dangerous weapon of all, his mind. But even for him, stealing the sacred stories from Niam, the mighty sky god, was an impossible task alone. Anansi knew that no matter how sharp his wit, he couldn't do this alone. He would need allies, each with a skill Niam himself could not counter. And so, the trickster set out on a journey, weaving a web of alliances with those whose talents matched his ambition. First, there was the mighty river god, whose strength flowed endlessly like the currents he controlled. Then, the swift hawk, whose speed could pierce the heavens and return before the blink of an eye. And finally, the wise tortoise, slow yet deliberate, a master of patience and careful planning. Each brought something unique to the table, and together, they agreed to join Anansi in his impossible quest. But Anansi didn't just need their help, he needed their trust. And so, with words sharper than any blade, he explained his plan, not to storm the gates of the heavens, but to trick Niam himself into thinking that the stories were safe. By disguising their intentions, they would get closer than anyone ever had. This was no simple task. But for Anansi, it wasn't about strength or speed, it was about weaving the perfect web. One misstep could destroy the plan. But with his allies, he believed they could outwit even the great Niam. This was the moment where everything would begin, the moment where a trickster became a legend. The plan was ready. The web was spun. Now, it was time for Anansi and his allies to embark on a journey that no mortal or god had dared before, a journey to the palace of Niam, the sky god. But the path to the heavens was no simple road. It was a labyrinth of dangers, filled with trials that tested even the most steadfast hearts. The journey began with the crossing of the great river. Its waters were said to have no end, its depth swallowing anyone who dared to challenge its currents. But the river god, with his mighty strength, calmed the raging waters, allowing the group to pass. Beyond the river lay the towering mountains of eternity, their peaks touching the very stars. The air grew thin, and the path grew treacherous. Sharp rocks and steep cliffs threatened to end their journey. But Anansi's wit prevailed. With clever riddles, he calmed the angry spirits of the mountain, gaining safe passage for his group. Then came the dark forest, a place where even the bravest of gods dared not tread. The trees whispered secrets, their roots moved like living creatures, and the shadows seemed alive. It was here that Anansi's greatest skill, his ability to outwit and deceive, shone brightest. He tricked the creatures of the forest with riddles and promises, clearing the path for his allies to move forward. And so, they pressed on. Each step brought them closer to the heavens, closer to the palace of Niam. But with each step, the journey grew more perilous. Yet Anansi's cleverness never faltered. His allies, united by his vision, followed him without question. Little did they know, the greatest challenge still lay ahead, beyond the gates of the sky god's palace. After endless days and treacherous nights, Anansi and his allies finally stood before the gates of Niam's grand palace in the heavens. The palace was an awe-inspiring sight, built of storm clouds and stars, its towers reaching beyond the sky. But their journey was far from over. The air crackled with divine power as the sky god himself awaited their arrival. Niam, the great sky god, was no fool. From his throne of thunder and light, he watched them approach, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. Anansi's reputation as the trickster had reached even the heavens, and Niam's booming voice shook the very air around them. "Why have you come, Anansi? Speak quickly, for I know your tricks. I see the web you weave, and I will not be ensnared. Tell me now, or leave with nothing." But Anansi, ever the master of words, did not flinch. With a smile that hinted at secrets untold, he bowed deeply and spoke with confidence. "Great Niam, ruler of the heavens, keeper of all stories, we come not to take from you, but to give. I have brought a gift, a challenge that I believe will amuse even a god as mighty as yourself. If we fail, we will leave, and your stories will remain yours. But if we succeed, we ask for only one thing." Niam's thunderous laugh echoed through the heavens, shaking the walls of his palace. The sky god, amused by Anansi's boldness, agreed to the challenge. But this was no act of generosity. Niam knew that no one could outwit him. His confidence was absolute. "You are bold, Anansi, and boldness deserves recognition. I will grant you your challenge, but know this, failure will not only mean you leave empty-handed. It will mean the end of your tricks forever." And so, the stage was set. Anansi and his allies stood before the sky god, knowing that the challenge ahead would require every ounce of wit, strength, and patience they possessed. But what Niam didn't know was that Anansi had been planning for this moment from the very start. Niam, the great sky god, believed no mortal or god could outwit him. To teach Anansi a lesson in humility, he devised 3 seemingly impossible tests, each more challenging than the last. If Anansi and his allies succeeded, Niam would hand over the stories of the world. But if they failed, they would leave in shame, their ambitions crushed. The first challenge was to cross the great river, a vast and roaring current that could only be traversed by a god of water. Niam smirked as he issued the challenge, knowing it was impossible for anyone but the river god to succeed. The river stretches endlessly, its violent waves crashing against the rocky shores. Mist rises into the air as the sound of the rushing water echoes ominously. Anansi, however, was undeterred. He turned to the river god, his ally, and sighed deeply. "Friend, I cannot swim. My life depends on your help. You, the master of water, the most powerful being here, are my only hope." The river god, pride swelling in his chest, could not resist such flattery. Without hesitation, he transformed into a shimmering wave and carried Anansi and the others safely across. The second challenge led them into the forest of shadows, a dark, ominous land filled with beasts that protected a hidden treasure. Niam's voice boomed as he gave the challenge. "Bring me the jewel hidden in the forest's heart. But beware, the guardians will not let you leave alive." Massive, twisted trees blot out the sunlight, casting the ground in eerie shadows. Glowing eyes peer out from the darkness, accompanied by low growls. The beasts were unlike anything Anansi had seen before, creatures of shadow and fury. But Anansi, ever the trickster, devised a plan. He crafted lifelike dummies from sticks and leaves, dressing them to resemble fearsome warriors. Fools! We have already defeated you. Look behind me at the warriors who bested your kind. The beasts, seeing the imposing figures behind Anansi, hesitated. Fear took hold, and they slinked away into the shadows, leaving the treasure unguarded. Anansi and his team emerged from the forest unscathed, carrying the jewel. The final test was the most dangerous of all. Niam pointed to the raging sky of storms, where lightning cracked and thunder roared. Somewhere in the chaos was a single sacred feather. "Bring me that feather," Niam declared, "if you dare." The sky churns with black clouds, bolts of lightning illuminating the chaos. Winds howl fiercely, and the ground trembles beneath their feet. Anansi turned to the swift hawk, his ally, and spoke calmly, "The storm cannot harm you. You are the master of the skies. Fly above it, and bring us the feather." The hawk soars upward, dodging lightning and navigating the powerful winds with incredible grace. With a powerful swoop, the hawk snatched the feather and returned to Anansi, landing triumphantly. The storm raged on, but the team had completed the final task. One by one, Anansi and his allies passed the tests with wit, teamwork, and determination. Each challenge proved their ingenuity and resolve. Niam, who had watched it all unfold, could no longer deny their cleverness. The sky god, now impressed, had no choice but to keep his word. After completing every impossible challenge, Anansi and his allies stood before Niam once more. The sky god, his pride bruised but his word intact, prepared to reward the trickster for his cleverness. Niam's face is stern but resigned. Slowly, he gestures to a glowing, golden book resting on a pedestal. "Anansi, you have proven your worth beyond all doubt. Your wit, courage, and resourcefulness have earned you this prize. The stories of the world now belong to you. Share them wisely." Anansi smiled as he took the golden book, his hands trembling slightly as he realized the immense power he now held. In this book lay the wisdom of the gods, the myths of creation, and the tales that would shape generations to come. The river god ripples with joy, the hawk spreads its wings, and the tortoise nods wisely. From that day forward, Anansi became the keeper of stories. He traveled far and wide, sharing the tales with all who would listen. To the young, he taught lessons of courage and cleverness. To the old, he reminded them of the wisdom of their ancestors. But Anansi also knew that stories were more than just entertainment. They carried the weight of truth, the seeds of change, and the power to transform the world. Anansi's journey was more than a tale of cleverness, it was a lesson about the power of storytelling. His triumph was not through brute force or wealth, but through wit, courage, and the belief that even the smallest can achieve the greatest. The stories he won were not just his victory, they were a gift to the world. Anansi's story teaches us that we all have the power to create our own destiny. In every challenge, there is an opportunity for cleverness to triumph. And just like Anansi, we too can write the stories that shape our lives and inspire others. What did you think of Anansi's daring adventure? Which Anansi tale would you like to hear next? Tell us in the comments below, we would love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to African Mythology Chronicles, and join us for more incredible journeys through the myths and legends of Africa.